Permission to approach the witness?
You may.
Let the record reflect I'm showing the witness the same. Also, what have I just handed you?
This is a summary of the conclusions that I made.
Does it appear to be a fair and accurate copy?
Yes.
How do you recognize this document?
I wrote it.
And did you write it at the time you did your assessment?
Yes, yes, I did.
Now, is it a typical business practice in your field to make summaries such as these?
Yes, it is.
And is it also a typical business practice to keep these reports?
Yes, it is correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I offer defense exhibit A in evidence.
Objection, Your Honor. I object on foundations. There has been no discussion of peer review or error rating.
All right.
Your Honor, this is, do you want me to respond?
First of all, I don't know what's in the document. So what specific statements or content of the document is it that you object to not being peer reviewed or error rates?
For example, the calculations of the damping coefficient, the speeds that were calculated as a result of that damping coefficient, also the calculations of how the dents from the impact with the tree and the utility pole, how they were used to calculate the speed of the vehicle. No peer review or error rate has been established for those.
How long is this document?
1 page.
Can I see a copy?
Can you see this copy? Sorry. Your Honor, none of that information is even in. This is just the expert report he compiled.
So this, all right, now I see that this is entitled Summary of Conclusions. Is this just the last page of a document he created, or
It
is
is.
this a standalone document that he created, or?
It's a summary of the conclusions he reached.
No, but what I'm saying, was this originally part of a complete
Yes.
document?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Now, as to your objections, you're objecting to the conclusions he reached might not be accurate for one reason or another?
The foundations for them have not been properly set.
Okay. Your response?
Your Honor, that foundation has been properly set. He testified that he used formulas to come to all the conclusions, that he had sufficient facts and data, that those formulas are reliable, that they are used by other members of the field, that they are, in fact, the only formulas used in the field of accident reconstruction to come to any sort of conclusions.
All right. I would agree that he has laid foundation for this expert to give his opinion, and that if there are underlying issues, that you can certainly attack him on cross. I am a little bit troubled by opposing counsel or defense counsel attempting to introduce just a portion of a document. Do you have any objections to that?
Yes, Your Honor, objection completeness.
All right. And I would be inclined to
May I respond?
sustain that objection. Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to direct your attention to Rule 1006,
Okay.
specifically dealing with summaries. It states that when there is a lengthy document such as an expert's report, a summary may be introduced into evidence.
I am familiar with that. How lengthy is the original document?
6 or 7 pages, I believe, Your Honor.
I don't think that would qualify as the intent under 1006. Do you have a response to that?
Yes, Your Honor, I agree with you completely. I believe that a 6 or 7 page document is not the intent of the 1006 rule to offer summaries instead.
Yes. I will sustain the objection to this, but if you were to offer the entire document, I would admit it without argument from the other side.
Okay. Permission to approach opposing counsel?
Yes.
I'd like to reflect I'm showing opposing counsel what's been previously marked as defense exhibit A. Permission to approach the witness?
You may.
Let the record reflect I'm showing the witness the same. Monsieur, do you recognize this document?
Yes, I do. This is my expert's report that I wrote for this case.
Was this report compiled at or near the time you did your assessment?
Yes.
Is it within a regular course of your business activity to make reports such as these?
Yes.
And you keep these reports.
Yes.
This time I offer Defense Exhibit A into evidence, Your Honor.
And it is admitted.
Monsieur Roland, did you reach certain conclusions within your report?
Yes, I did.
How many did you reach?
But I feel that they can best be summarized with three.
Okay, well, what is your first conclusion?
That Mademoiselle Dawson swore while she was driving on Canyon Road to avoid the deer.
And what's your second
Objection,
conclusion?
Your Honor, speculative.
By definition, an opinion is speculative, but that's borderline, but I think he can give that opinion, but it's certainly something that can be attacked on cross.
Your Honor, if I may, he is offering it as a conclusion rather than an opinion.
Wish I had a court reporter. What was the question?
What was your first conclusion that you reached in your
And-
expert report?
Just to eliminate argument, I will sustain the objection, re-ask the question, make sure that it's given in the form of an opinion.
Move to strike, Your Honor.
It is stricken.
In your expert opinion, what was the first conclusion you came to in your report?
That Mademoiselle Dawson swore to avoid the deer while she was driving on Canyon.
And what was the second conclusion you came to in your report?
Is that
What was the second opinion you came to in your report?
the road, Canyon Road, was dangerous, and this danger was exacerbated by the rain on the road.
And your third and final opinion?
That the car was driving slower than what was reported in the fatal crash team report.
Well, Mansour, I'd like to go into detail about each of these conclusions. Could you explain them more?
I've actually prepared the demonstrative for this purpose.
Your Honor, may the witness step down and make use of the demonstrative?
Has opposing counsel seen the demonstrative pre-trial?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now approach the witness and tender evidence to the bench.
Yes.
Can you see this?
Yes, sir.
What are we looking at here?
This is a diagram of the car being driven on Canyon Road from September 25th.
No, your first opinion was that Miss Dawson swerved to avoid a deer. Could you explain this?
Yes, as the car was driving down Canyon Road, the car quickly saw that the deer was around here, and the car turned at a sharp angle. Then the car went off the road into the grass, back onto the road, where she overcorrected, and then that is where the collision occurred with the utility pole.
Well, how can you tell that Miss Dawson swerved to avoid a deer?
Her driving and for my examination of the road afterwards shows, and everything is compatible with her, the sharp angle which she turned to avoid an object again.
Objection, Your Honor. Foundation has not been set for the existence of a deer in the roadway.
Yeah. You know, I actually just wrote that on my notepad, that he is getting away from opinions and stating facts. How do you respond to that?
Your Honor, he's an expert giving his expert opinion about the conclusions he reached.
Well, he's allowed to do that, but he has made several statements that come off to the jury as statements of fact. So you need to make sure that your witness is thorough in explaining that these are his opinions, and that in his best judgment, X happened. But I will sustain the objection and strike the portion so far about the deer and invite you to just basically start over with the diagram.
Also, how did you first learn about a deer being in the roadway?
From my examinations of all the documents and also examining her driving pattern.
Specifically, which documents mentioned a deer?
The documents of Danny Dawson mentioned the deer, and also Monsieur Bennett mentioned that deer are frequent on Canyon Road.
And you relied on these documents when coming to your conclusions, is that correct?
And yes, I also looked at how the car was driving and if it's compatible with swerving to avoid an object moving in the air.
Now, could you again explain your first conclusion?
Is that the car was driving and swerved to avoid a deer on the road.
Objection.
This is gonna be an area that y'all are gonna have trouble with, every round. So we're gonna stop for a minute to address how you guys can get around this. Thor, what you need to do is basically say, you know, the car, you know, first of all, you need to clarify with, you know, in my opinion.
And start all these off within my opinion.
But yeah, I think an easier way to
Because that's what
to get around it would
gonna
be,
do.
that will help a little bit, but an easier way to get around it is to say, you know, I determined the car went off the road. This is consistent with somebody avoiding a deer. That's a lot different because you're not saying there was a deer out there. You're just saying that the ruts are consistent with somebody avoiding a deer. Because a couple of times up there, you have made the statement, she swerved to avoid a deer. We don't know that. I mean, you know, so that's where you're getting in trouble. So you guys need to work it out with basically let him tell what happened. You know, it's my opinion she went off the road to the right. You know, well, do you have an opinion as to why that might have happened? Well, this is consistent with somebody avoiding an object like a deer.
Okay.
You know, and then she overcorrected and went off the road to the left. Do you have an opinion as to why that might happen? Well, it's my opinion she probably overcorrected, or whatever he's going to say. All right.
And
But-
y'all make sure y'all take down what he just said about the marks in the road, because I kept waiting for something some explanation for how this opinion, how you derived from this opinion. How did you get the opinion that you ran off the road? Well, there were marks off the side
Yeah,
of the road.
just say, look, there were ruts on the right-hand side of the road, and they were consistent with whatever. And then, you know, she went over to the left-hand side of the road, and this was consistent with somebody overcorrecting. And so that way it gets around it. But you can't get on there and say she was avoiding a deer, but what you can say is these ruts right here are consistent with somebody avoiding an object in the road, like a deer. Okay? So, your objection is sustained. You guys try one more time on your direct as best you can, and we'll work on it, you know, for next time. But that's the way that would be better to address it. Is I observed this, and it's my opinion that it happened because of X. Not there was a deer on the road, and that's why she swerved.
So I observed X.
I observed ruts.
So I'll be like, well, I saw the ruts on the road, and then
and this is consistent
this
with
is
somebody.
consistent with somebody avoiding an object like a deer.
Right, exactly. And that way you're not stating a fact that there was a deer on the road. It could have been a dog, it could have been a moose, you know, whatever. But it's not stating a fact, it's just giving an opinion.
May I proceed?
Yes.
So what was the first conclusion you reached?
Okay. Hold on. Okay, no. So let me get this straight. Everything I'm saying, we just practiced. So this is all now an opinion because you're an idiot. But this is all now an opinion, and that I have to word this such that
Right, and it always should have been, because you're an expert. You weren't there to witness it. So you can't testify as to what happened. All you can testify is that I have a lot of training and knowledge in recreating these things. And based on what I saw and what I recreated, it's my best guess that this is what happened.
So
Can I have a question about what we're doing?
Let's get
All
through
right.
this, and then if you have any questions, ask me and we'll
all right,
address
here we
it.
go.
Right?
Let's try this again.
So what was the first conclusion you reached?
Is that
That Danny Dawson ran off the right-hand side.
I'm gonna drop this accent. So that Danny Dawson, but if it's an opinion, so I can't be like, well, if he's asking for conclusion, then I want to be like, Danny Dawson avoided a deer. So should I be like,
Say-
in
yeah,
my
just say
opinion,
the
he
wording is
avoided a
consistent.
deer. She avoided a deer.
Well, he said, what's your first conclusion? What's your first opinion?
Uh-huh.
My first opinion is I could tell from the running off the road.
So if I'm like-
That
No, just-
Dawson ran off the side of the road.
And this is consistent with avoiding a deer.
You can say
Object
that.
in the roadway such as a deer.
Yeah, or he could even ask another question to even make it more impactful. Like, you could say, he'll ask, what's your,
Can I be the judge?
I'll ask the
Can I
question.
do
No,
that?
Brian should be
Ask
the
the
witness.
What was the first conclusion you reached?
The first conclusion I reached was that Danny Dawson's vehicle exited the right-hand side of Canyon Road.
Do you have an opinion as to why this might be?
It is consistent with the driver avoiding an object suddenly appearing in the roadway, such as a dog or a deer.
Well, what happened next?
It's my opinion that after the vehicle continued on the right-hand side of the road, the vehicle attempted to come back onto the roadway and then overcorrected, exiting the left-hand side of the road.
Sweet. Yeah, that's it.
And your final opinion is that it struck a tree and a utility pole.
Sweet.
I think that's.
All right, try this again. Y'all mind if I just drop this accent for a bit?
No, keep it here.
You can do it.
All right,